Hi, I'm Teresa Coates, and today on Make, we're going to talk all about sewing with curves. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me today on Make. We are sewing with curves. So I wanted to talk about this because it's something that kind of intimidates a lot of new quilters and sometimes people who've been quilting for a really long time. It just seems kind of scary to sew a curve. So we're going to talk all about how we can do it, how we can make it a little bit easier, and show you the variations that are available with it. So we had announcements. Oh, the we're gonna whoever comments on the video will have two prizes at the end. So I'll be giving away little kits to make your own curved block pieces. And so make sure that you comment, and at the end Hawk will grab a winner. Two winners, right? Yeah, two winners. And we'll give those away at the end. Okay, so make sure you stick around. If we call your name, then we'll need to get information from you. So I'm gonna take my shoes off so I can be a little more stable here. Okay, so the most common block that we want to talk about is the drunkard's path block, and it's the block that most people know, and it's really the kind of basic one to get started with making curves. So I have a few different examples of what a drunkard's block looks like. I'm going to show you if I can find my little samples here. Well, we can do it with these big quilts, so do it overhead and we'll see. I'll show you what that looks like. So these are 4 drunkard's paths. Okay, so drunkard's paths, we'll talk about it a little bit. We'll show you some different layouts that you can do. Drunkard's paths block, they have so much flexibility because they are this shape that is just morphable in all sorts of ways. Okay, so this is one variation where I've put them together into a circle. And so these are individual blocks right here. Okay, these are individual blocks that are sewn together to look like a complete circle. I also did this one, which is the same sort of block, but it also has this little tip over here and a little tip over here. So this is a really fun block, and it's just kind of a morph on the drunkard's path. Okay, so we'll talk about how we can do those. First, Hawk, would you throw up the drunkard's path, the overlay? Okay, so this, is it up there?
Yes.
Okay. I can't see it, so great. Okay, so this is a pillow that I made years ago with some Jen Kingwell fabric, and you can see this is all very funky the way that it's laid out. I really love it. This is a very simple block. This isn't actually a pretty small one. I'll show you this in just a second. So show us the next one. This is the book that I got this pattern from. So you can see the quilt. It's a picture of it, and the book that I took it from. So this is a great book, and I just recommend it if you're really interested in drunkard's paths but don't want the typical drunkard path. This is a great book for really kind of looking at them in a different light. So also on my blog, I have several variations on layouts for drunkard's paths that you can check out there, and that's teresacoates.com. So we definitely want to talk about all the different kind of layouts that you've got that are possible with this block. All right. So also, I forgot to mention, if you've got questions, please just shout them out as we go. We're going to talk through this all, and then at the end, we'll have comments. Okay. All right. So we're going to start. Like, do I want to start cutting? Yes, we're going to start cutting first. So I've got a little square that I want to do, and I've got some big pieces. So one of the things, let's come up front again. So one of the things about working with the drunkard's path or any sort of curved block is that the bigger the block, the easier it is. The bigger the curve, the easier it is. And there's a lot of rulers that kind of that use that to their advantage. The quick curve ruler is one that curve is not a super sharp curve. So the bigger your curve, the easier it is to go around that. So the smaller curves, and we'll get to those, are definitely more hard. So what I want to do is I want to start with a big curve, and we're going to start actually with the clammy ruler. And I want to show you this. Let me turn these over so you can see the ruler a little bit better, I hope. So the clammy ruler is kind of my favorite. And this is the big, huge one that she has. So this one is a 16-inch. Okay, so this curve right here It's very soft. All right. And the clammy ruler is super fun because it lets you do all sorts of things. So you can do the clamshell, which is what it's kind of made for originally, but you can do a half and a quarter circle, a full circle, and an orange peel. And in the instructions that you get with it, it'll show you how to do that. So these guys come in 4 sizes, I think, and I've only got 3. So you can see it gets a little smaller with the 12, and here is the 8-inch. So you can see how much tighter this curve is here compared to this curve here. All right. So I'm going to cut out this big one so that we can see how that works together. And I want to show you how the ruler works and then how we're going to sew those together. So I want to do these one at a time, and we'll do a small one too. I want to do these one at a time, and I'm going to show you how I do it. All right, so on this ruler, we have some straight lines that we'll need to line up, and then we'll do our curved piece here, and then our so this would be the concave, and this would be the convex curve, okay? Those need to be cut slightly differently, so you can't take this out of just a 5-inch square and then cut it, because it won't sew together right. Okay, so these have to be different. These measurements are actually different. Here's a...
Is that because they account for the seam allowance?
Right, exactly. So here's a good example, because here's another one that I have that you can see that these are not the same, but if I put them together, then the seam will overlap. Okay, so that's how that works. So when we use the clammy, we just need to use it so that we're cutting it bigger on the concave. All right.
Can I quickly throw up the
yes.
Can I throw up the banner for the clammy so we can see kind of what the results are of this?
Yeah. Let's do it.
There.
So this is a clamshell, is what this block is, and I use the clammy ruler on the one on the right, the quilt, the larger quilted one, and that one I use the 12-inch clammy on it, and I piece the blocks in the middle and then cut it out. The one on the left is actually made with the AccuQuilt die, which I have it here. Let me see if it tells me. It's 4 inches finished. Okay, so that's just a little guy. So you can see the difference. That's a really good way of actually showing it. Is the difference in the curve there? I can't really see it with all the stuff behind it. But the curve here is much larger than the curve on this little guy, which is super tiny. Okay, so we're going to do it with this guy. And I'm going to cut this out. One of the things to remember is that when you are cutting this out, when you're cutting curves, it's really important that you use a smaller ruler. So on this one, it's big enough curve that I can get my 45 around here just fine. Okay. So
your 45 millimeter rotary cut. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to go ahead and mark this where I want to cut it. I want to cut it down that edge. And I want to cut it down this edge. Okay. So I can do that with my regular ruler. So that part I can do. It's a big enough curve that I can do that without any problem. So let me cut my straight edges here.
And okay. I see you're specifically following the pattern on that fabric.
I am.
Right? That's basically following the grain line.
I'm going to try really hard to get this to look right following the grain line. Yes. Which is probably not the smartest choice, but I had a lot of these fat quarters. It's new fabric from Adidas Sitar. And so I have a bunch of this and I wanted to use it. Oh, look at my poor little rotary cutter.
It does seem to have a blip in it.
It does. It looks like it has a lot of blip in it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this again, lining it up with what I had lined up before. How did I get that up there? Oh, I know, because I was lining up with the lines. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to redo this and get it right. I want to make sure I've got it nailed. Okay, so I want to have it on the left side here and then along this dotted line right there. Okay, so we're going to try this again.
Rulers have a lot of lines. It's hard sometimes to tell which line is which,
It
right?
really doesn't. So what I did is I looked here. It says half quarter circle. So I realized that the line goes over to here. So it probably goes here. I also know that my 1/4 inch seam allowance, I wanted to end at the like the apex of it. So where that gets sewn in, it's kind of the furthest point. All right, there we go.
All right, so how big is that ruler or that rotary cutter?
So this one is a 28mm rotary cutter, and this one is a 45. So you can see that it's a huge difference here, cutting out that outside swoop, except the fact that my blade didn't want to cut through it. One layer of fabric. Besides the fact that my blade didn't want to cut through it, cutting that outside curve on the 45 is doable. But really, I encourage you to get the 28 because the hard part is the second curve that we have to do. So I'm going to grab another fabric. And we're going to do this one. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and cut my straight edges first. And I know that I'm going to need it bigger than this piece here. So I can measure this, and I'm going to cut a 9-inch square for myself. Ish, 9-inch-ish. Okay. So let's see. 2, 9, 10, over here. Okay. So now I just really want to get this straight. So that's going to be the biggest thing there, is that I get a nice straight edge. Okay, look at my ruler. Go down, oops, on this side. Okay, looks like about here. Oh, that new blade is beautiful. All right, so now at this point I have my 2 straight edges, and I'm going to cut this part here, which is the bottom, the convex part. Okay, so again, I'm going to put these in here. I want to get my 1/4-inch seam allowance. Okay. There we go. Now, this is the part that we need the little ruler for, because as we come around here, this is a tiny little curve. If we do this with the big one, we end up hitting it a lot closer. This one we could probably do it, but I'm not even going to try. I just much rather use this little bitty one to kind of come around here. Okay, I'll go ahead and chop that off. Whoops. Chop that off, and then I'll remeasure it, make sure it's the right length. Okay, there we go. All right, so this part will go with this part, and they will sew together. How did that happen? I'm just going to move that off. It'll be a little bit extra exciting right there. Okay, so these will come together. You can see that one is bigger than the other. That's how they're going to end up fitting. So one of the things that I want to note is that this one is a 1/4 circle. Okay, so this is technically a drunkard's path and a 1/4 circle. A 1/4 circle would end up cutting off of your seam allowance here. Okay, so your circles will bump each other. This is kind of a way that a lot of Latifah's patterns work. So she does like molehill, and she does some other patterns, muffin tops, that the circles bump into each other. And that's because this little 1/4 inch will get eaten into the seam allowance. So a typical drunkard's path is made so that it has a bigger border around these edges. Okay, does you see the difference?
Yes.
Okay, so it's wider here, so that when I sew off a 1/4 inch, I still have some of this background. And that's the way the quilts I showed you were. Let me show you really quick. Move these so I don't break them. So that's the way this would be. Okay, so this is the typical drunkard's path. If you use Latifah's ruler or a couple of the others, and I'll mention to you where they sit like that, you'll end up with your circles will bump each other. Okay.
Oh, okay. So there's no space in between adjoining circles in this
Right.
case.
Right.
Got it.
Exactly. So it's important to understand if you're making it, how much background you want. So the background, you can always trim it off. So honestly, if you want to cut it so that it has a little more background, you are totally welcome to, and you could just reposition it so that it was like that. Either way is totally fine. But you do want to take note whether you want to actually have a background or not. Okay. Let me move stuff already. Hang on.
All right.
Okay. All right. So now we've got our stuff put here. I'm going to turn on my iron really quick because I am going to use it.
I'm going to hit you on the front camera.
Okay.
There you go.
If I can get my little guy to come on. Oh, there we go. I have to hit the on button. That's helpful. Okay. So the reason we want to do that is because I want to press in the marks so that I can align them. So on the clammy ruler and some of the other rulers, there are marks, but it's really easiest to just go ahead and press those in place so that we can kind of see them. I usually press them and then I will kind of mark them with a pen. So we want to mark the center of each one of these guys. So we want to mark it in the center and then the outside because we're going to match those first. Then we'll match in between. On a block this size, I want to measure it. I'm going to fold it in half and then I'm going to fold it in half again so that I can make sure and have those quarter marks that I can really match that up and make it work. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move my ironing mat over here so you can see what I'm doing. All right, and I'm just going to take this and fold it in half. Just give it a little press. This is the part that I'm going to match up, not this part over here, so I don't really care if it has a crease. I just need to crease the top part here. I'm going to fold this in, give that a little press, do it the other way, and give that a little press. Okay, so now I have those registration marks, all right? So on a lot of these, we want to, we have like the marks that are on the pattern, but this one I've done it here, and now I want to mark it with a pen that will go away. You can use it with a regular pencil, but I tend to use things like the Mark Be Gone. All right, so I've got that marked. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to fold that in half and mark corner here, or the registration mark there, and do the same thing. I'm going to bring it back. Fold in half so I can find my quarters. Okay, so now I've got my quarter marks on both of them. Now this one, I'm going to mark those registration marks on the back side of it. All right, and I'll show you why that makes a difference. And you don't have to mark these. I mark them because it's much easier for me to see the pen than it is to see the crease when I'm actually sewing it together. So I kind of do this as a double checking myself and making sure that it's right. So now I've got my convex piece, my convex piece. I'm waiting for Hawks. Yes, that's right. This is the concave. This is concave.
Oh, you know what?
I think this is convex.
Depending on how you.
And this is the concave. So this is the background.
You are correct.
Thanks. This is the background, and this is the focus fabric.
Do you starch that fabric before you press it?
You can, but what happens is we actually need this to stretch a little bit. So starching it will make it stay where we want it to, except that this time we actually want it to stretch a little bit. So I don't generally starch them now. I will starch them when I'm done though, because I'm a big starcher. All right. So now we've got this one ready to go. And I'm going to show you how I sew this. So I like to sew them without any pins. So we're going to kind of start like the hard way. And I'm going to show you that way, but it's really not that hard when you're sewing on something big. So I encourage you to give it a try because it's actually pretty easy. I'll show you some glue basting and pin basting too. But this is a pinless technique. On my blog, there is a tutorial that I shared from Latifa where she shows you how to do all of the shapes that are available in her clammy by using what she calls pinless piecing. So it's using this method here. So what I want to do is I want to start sewing up here, and I'm going to sew all the way around this curve. The way I do it is a little bit funky, I think. It's a little different than Latifa's, so you can watch mine and you can also watch hers. And I'll show you a couple more, and we'll get smaller and smaller and smaller. All right, so let's come over to the machine. And I've got the regular foot is on here right now, but I'm going to take this off because I really want to use my 1/4 inch foot. So I will say that there are several tutorials. Let me put my foot down this way. Several tutorials that'll tell you to use a walking foot. And I have not liked using a walking foot because the walking foot is so wide. So the foot on it is too wide, and I really want this narrow little edge because I have this curve. All right, so let me see if I can get this to work right now. There we go. All right, so I've got my 1/4 inch foot on here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to get it connected, which is just going to be the tiniest little edge there. Okay, so we're going to get this going, and I'm going to stitch a couple of stitches just to make sure that it's good. I'm going to lower my stitch length to a 2.0 just so that it goes a little bit slower around the curve. So I found that a tighter stitch gives me more time to kind of make it do what I want it to do. All right, so the way that I do this is we're going to sew this, and we're going to follow this curve in, and as we go, we're going to bring this fabric around. All right, we're going to watch for these registration marks as we come together here. So if I pin this, or hold it with my finger, you can see I don't really have to stretch this much to get it to fit. So we're just going to try to feed them together and not make them stretch. All right. So
and stretching is the thing that's the trickiest part, right?
It's kind of it's the part that'll either make it fit or not fit. Yeah. Okay, so as we go, we're just going to kind of keep an eye on it. I can see down the side of my foot is what I'm looking at. And then as I go, I'm just going to kind of keep an eye on this right here. So where these blue lines match, the blue line is very helpful. Then I can kind of just come around here. Stitch it till I get up there. Then I know it matches. Do the same thing here. This one, it looks like I'm going to need to stretch just a tiny bit to get that to come over here. Okay. So go ahead and hold this. And I just kind of keep an eye underneath here. So I'm trying to pull it so that it will match as I go. Okay, the thing with curves is that there's no fast way of doing them. But if you take your time with them, they turn out really beautiful. Oh, I panicked for a second. That caught thread. I thought it meant I had no bobbin. Okay, that would have been terrible. So here we have our marks again. You see how well they lined up. Okay, and it's because I'm really only sewing a few inches at a time and making those match. So I will say that the end part here, the last part, I tend to need to stretch the bottom and not the top. So you see that they kind of want to already be a little longer. So I'll stretch the bottom and not the top. I don't know exactly why it works that way. It's some sort of thing with physics and geometry. Okay. As we get down here, my blue lines are still matching, so I'm going to get up to that point, and then I'm going to swing this around. So this is where we need our stiletto, which I made sure we had yesterday. There it is. Okay. So this is when we're going to use our stiletto because it is really hard to hold all of these together, and especially when they're skinny or small. So I'm just going to use the stiletto, keep those together, and just work my way around to this bottom. Okay. So I find this the easiest way is that I sew the circle part of it. I sew that with it down, and then I sew the background on top of that. Okay. So you'll see different ways of doing it. And I suggest that for yourself, you give it a try both ways and see which works best for you, because there can be a difference in that. So for some people, it works much easier to put it the other direction. This way works best for me. I have much more ability to kind of manipulate this. So now we can see our little creases. I don't know if you can see that, but the creases line up. This lines up. And now I have a teeny tiny little 1/4 inch seam up here. Okay, so now I'm going to give these a little press. And when we're pressing these, so you will notice that you can press it either direction. Okay, on the, oh, I forgot to tell them about the little handout. This really depends on which way you want your circle to go. Depends on if you're going to nest it. It depends on if you want it to pop out or pop in. There's all sorts of things with this. Okay, so there's a big guy, super easy to do.
Can you explain pop in, pop out?
Yeah, so let me see if I can do it with these little guys. Okay, so on these guys, I press these in. Did I do it on all of them? It looks like I might have. So I'm going to press this the other direction so we can see the difference. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press this direction. And you can see it'll press either way. It's kind of weird that curve is so curvy and one side is so much bigger than the other, but they will still just press, yeah, whichever direction that you want them to. Okay.
And then could you press them open?
I don't know. I've never tried. Excuse me, I'm gonna drink. All right. So now we're still on top, right?
Yep.
Okay, so on here, you might not be able to tell in here. I'll move it over to the little camera too. But I have a lip here and I have a lip here. So on this one, it kind of pops up this way. And on this one, the background pops up. So I'm going to move it over to the camera that's by the sewing machine because I think you might be able to see it a little bit better there. Okay, so I have like a little lip right here. You see where the fabric comes in and then it kind of lips up right there.
Yes.
And then this one is the opposite, where this is flatter and it kind of lips up here.
Got it.
Okay.
And under what circumstances might you want the difference?
It kind of just depends on which way you want it to look. Do you want the circle to be forward? Do you want the circle to be in the back? Are we paying more attention to the background or are we paying more attention to the foreground? So that's kind of what it is.
Okay.
It will also help you. So if you're going to quilt the heck out of it, it won't really matter which way you do it. But if you do that, you can nest your seams together and sew them really
there
easily.
we go.
So there are definitely reasons. I find that you can absolutely, like I did here, these have been pressed for a very long time, and you can totally repress them. So as you're going, if you decide that you want to nest them together, you can do that. All right. So that's a great way to make them match that way, is by nesting them. Okay. So big one. It's easy. All right, let's come to the front. So the big one is easy. It's got a nice strong curve. It's got 4 places that well, 5 places, I guess, because I match either end, the 2/4 marks, the center mark. So you got lots of places to kind of match it up, and you've got some bigger stretches in there. So you saw, like, I didn't really have to manipulate the fabric. It just kind of sits in there really nicely. So starting with a big curve is a really good idea. The 16-inch is a really big curve, but there are rulers that you can make it that big without having the huge clammy. Okay, so like, so let me show you a couple of the other rulers. So let's talk about that just really quick, what the other rulers are, and then I'll show you a couple other ways of sewing it. So there's different ways that the rulers come. So like the clammy comes and it has, you know, all these different ones that you can do on it, the orange peel, the half circle, full circle, all of that stuff. You can make all of these out of one. Then there are rulers like the slot ruler, which is called the Classic Curves ruler. And this one is from colorgirlquilts.com. Okay, let me see if I can put it on some fabric over here. Be able to see it a little better top down, I think. Okay, yeah, that's better. Okay, so this is the Classic Curves ruler. This is a slot ruler, and it will do sizes 4 inches up to 8.5 inches. So this would do that same size of block as the Big Clammy did, okay, with just this one. Does that make sense? Okay, so this one only does drunkard paths, but it does them in all the different sizes. And it also, I guess it would also do an orange peel, because an orange peel is just this shape.
So how does
Okay.
that ruler do the concave and the convex?
Good question. So the way that it works on this one, I'm going to move these up here, is that we use this corner here. She tells you align fabric to cut concave curve, which is that outside, align fabric to cut convex curve. So when we place this ruler on here, we're going to measure it here along this outer line for the circle part. And then when we want to cut the background part, we'll line it up like this on this inside line. That gives you a 1/2 inch extra, and that's what's needed for that 1/4 inch seam allowance on one side and a 1/4 inch seam allowance on the other side, is a 1/2 inch difference between the length of this curve. The thing that I will note is that when I did this, when I was trying to figure it out, I messed it up a couple times because I was trying really hard to figure it out. And what I realized is that it is easier if you put little stickers on here. So I used my GE Designs stickers for the Stripology ruler, which is also a slot ruler. And I put these on the one that I wanted to choose. Okay, this is the finish size, is a 5 inch drunkard's path. And I was getting myself confused with like, but I need to cut it 5.5. And so then I was cutting the sizes and they didn't match. And that was, you know, not preferable. So this was the 5 inch one. You can see this is my outer one. Okay. And then when I line it up with the inner one, it should, oh, how did this work? Oh, you have to cut a bigger square. That's right. And then when you cut the inner one, it'll match here. And I actually don't think those match. How did I get that to mess up? Let's do it again. So I'll now show you how to do this one. Okay, so here we go. So this was my outside one. We know that's at 5 inches. This one, I cut it and it's smaller. And that's because I did it wrong. So let's go ahead and cut this guy. Okay. So we're going to measure it here. So this is my other piece. So here's this piece. And then I'm going to cut this piece. So I line it up in this corner, get my edges to match. And now, because I have those stickers, I don't really have to think about it, which is really helpful. I'm going to turn my ruler or my fabric slightly so I have a better angle at this curve, because we do want to do this in one fell swoop. So this is a place that you absolutely need to use a smaller ruler, because this curve, your ruler will not come around this. And what happens is you end up hitting the curve as you go, which is bad for both your ruler and your blade.
The big 45 millimeter.
The big 45.
It
Yeah.
won't make that curve.
It won't make
the
around
plastic.
here.
Got
Yeah,
it.
you'll just kunk around, and that's not good for anybody. Okay, so we're going to use the 5 inch one. I'm going to stick my blade down in this. I'm going to say that. There we go. Okay, so I have to hold it up a little bit because the biggest part is down here at the bottom. So normally I cut this way, but if I do it that way, I don't really have much blade right here. Okay, so we have to cut it a little higher. So if it's not working, that's all. Just lift your blade up. All right, there we go. So that was a better example of how that went together. Okay, so there's our two pieces that will go together for that one. So that's the classic curves ruler. And the thing that I like about it is the fact that it does all of these different sizes. So if you really want to get into doing something with lots of curves on it, that's a great way of doing it. It has some other things on how to line up for some different blocks, but the only one I really cared about this time was the drunkard's path. So it does very limited other things. Drunkard's path is the big one. The other ones that you can use are this type of template. Again, we'll get some fabric here. So this is a 2-piece template. This comes from a set that does all of these different things on it, but these are the parts that I use. So this is the outside, the background fabric. This would be the inside fabric. Okay, and they only do this size.
Is that the block?
No, this is called Simply Easy. It's from Easy Quilting, which was part of simplicity.com. And I don't know where their rulers are right now. I don't know how that system works anymore, the simplicity stuff. But this is just a regular, you can find lots of these in different brands. Okay, so these go together. You have a big one and a little one. It will only make this size block. That's it. It's the only one it's going to make. It could make a full size circle or a half circle out of it by placing a fold in the middle, but you can't get a bigger or smaller block like we could with the last ruler. All right. The other one that I have is this brand, which I'm not sure these are, I've had these templates for a long time. Okay. This one is an even smaller one. This one tells me it's 3.5 inches finished, but it's the same thing. It will only do 3.5 inch finished. All right, so these are often a little bit cheaper than the ones that will do a lot of different sizes. So if you want to just do the same size over and over, these are great. All right, the other way that you can do it is with the dies that we were showing you. So this is the clamshell, but this is the drunkard's path die that you can use for the AccuQuilt die. And this one, I don't think it actually told me what size it was. Go drunkard's path, that's what it says. Okay, so let me measure that, because I'm curious. It's a little bitty one too. So I'm going to measure the whole thing across. This is where the blade is in the middle. So that's 4 inches. So this would be a 3.5 inch finish. All right. So just another little guy. So that's the way that you can get your actual patterns. If you go to my blog at teresacoates.com, there is, and go to the one for the blog post for today for make, and you will get a template that will make almost a 5-inch block for you. So you can give this a try with a little bit bigger one. So you can see they get smaller and smaller and smaller. And I have one more that I'll show you at the end. Okay, so let's talk about glue basting. All right, we'll do it with this guy. Oh, so this is the other thing that I was talking about earlier, is that if you put these together, you can't sew these together because they end up not working. This tail will be much too long, like 1/4 inch too long. So these don't work. You can't cut them out of the same pieces. You do have to cut them separately. So it should be slightly shorter, about 1/2 inch. So probably about half an inch off there. So it'll be 1/2 inch longer on either side there. All right, that's how you can know. That's how I knew that other one was not quite right. All right, so we're going to do the same thing, and I'm going to make my marks on here where my halves are. So I'm just going to fold them in half. And when I have one that's this size, this is a little bit, it's a little small to do my quarter marks. I'm going to try it and see if we can get those to show up nicely. And again, I'm just going to press just that little tip of a corner. You can finger press this too, but what I have found is that when I do that, it's not as crisp of a mark, so it's harder to see. So I find that using the iron does make it a little bit easier. So I'm just going to draw my blue lines right here. Okay, so I've got that one marked. Then I'm going to do the same thing. And again, on the circle part, we're going to mark it on the right side. And on the background part, we're going to mark it on the wrong side. And that's so we can see them both as they're going through the machine. So if I marked the wrong side of both, I'd never be able to see it on this piece. And you saw how I kind of used that as I went. Okay, so same. We'll fold there. Do the same thing here, fold that down. Get a little press. Okay, extreme accuracy is not important, but you know, pretty good accuracy is. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and mark again. Oops, I marked the wrong side on this. Okay, so again, we're going to want to make sure that our top edges are matching, and then we're going to sew around here and make sure this matches, then this matches, and I can start to see that this, I have to give it a little bit more stretch to get it to even match here. All right, so I could sew this probably by making these match, but I'm going to show you the other way of doing it, which is with a glue stick. So the glue stick that I'm going to use, I have 2 of them here that I like. I'm just going to use my scrap fabric. Do we have a scrap paper in here? No. It's my handout. Yeah, I'll show you guys and then I'll use that. So this is the handout that you can find at teresacoates.com. If you go to the blog part, there is a blog post called Make and Get Ahead of the Curve, and it has this template on there for you so you can give it a try and some instructions on how to do it, as well as a QR code that will get you back to this video so you can watch it later. All right, so I'm going to use this as my scrap fabric so I don't get glue on here. So what I want to do is I want to mark the edge of my curve here. So there's a couple ways of doing it, and I will show you both ways. So first I'm going to mark the beginning, the middle, and the end. All right, and I'm going to glue those in position. Okay, this is the part you were asking about yesterday, Hawk. We're like, how do you do that? It's because we just make it match. Whoops. We hope that the glue holds. So what I prefer to do, generally speaking, is mark the whole damn thing at once. Okay, so we were discussing it yesterday, and one of the risks of marking the whole thing or putting glue on the whole thing really is that you can get glue on the front side of this. It is all washable because it is fabric glue, so it's not going to be a problem. I'm going to move this now so you can see better against the gray. Okay, so I've gotten it matched here. It's matched here. And then I'm just going to kind of work my way around here, making those edges match. All right, and just pressing. So I have found that these glue sticks work really well. They keep their stick for a little while. Sometimes I have to go back in and refix things, but not very often. Okay. So now my edges are going to match. Make them stick a little better. So again, we're going to come back in, just put a little glue on there, shove that back into position. Okay, so now my fabric just stays where it's at. All right, which is pretty cool. So now we're going to go ahead and sew it the same way that we did before, except that I don't have to stretch it as I go. But again, I'm going to start at the top. Okay. Get that to go forward, and then I'm going to back stitch. Oops, I cut my thread instead of back stitched. Okay, and I'm just going to keep this kind of going away from it. So you want it to kind of head toward the back. If you get little puckers, it'll cause issues. So make sure that you're keeping this nice and flat around this edge. You saw how easy that was with the big one. This one's a little bit smaller, so this will be a 5-inch one. And it's not too bad. We get a little bit of push there, but it totally works. Okay. Again, I'm going to use my stiletto at the end here so I don't have to get my fingers too close to that needle. And I'm going to back stitch again. You don't have to back stitch. I tend to put a back stitch in there because I like to make things and let them sit for a long time before I finish them. So wait, look what happened. Remember I was worried before about not working?
Is that because there's no more bobbin thread?
There is bobbin thread, so I'm not sure what happened. It might be because I started sewing. I back stitched and then, I cut it and then immediately started stitching. So we're just going to rethread the bobbin. And then we'll try it again, okay? Let's do it one more time.
Do over.
Okay, so again, I'm going to get my stiletto here and I'm going to kind of shove this just a little bit as I go to make sure it stays nice and even. And then I'll check my stitches back there and make sure that it actually worked. Okay, I think so. So doing it this way, what I found is that I can actually stitch faster because it's already in place and I'm not trying to get those edges to match. But it does take the time at the beginning to actually do the glue basting. So it's kind of one of these things that do you want to spend the time making the match as you sew, or do you want to take the time to glue them before you sew? It's not that one is necessarily a time saver. You just spend the time in different places. So as I get these little bumps, I can kind of just take it, push it toward the back. Okay.
That glue stick, do you have to worry about it gumming up your needle?
No, I haven't had any issue with it.
So what is that glue stick? I actually haven't really seen you use that little.
So I have two of them that I'll show you. Okay, so that's how that turns out. All right, and again, we can see where our folds have matched up nicely. No little puckers in there. It's great. If you get a little soft pucker, I don't have one here, but a lot of times I can kind of just massage it out. If it's just little, it'll end up laying flat. Okay, so let me press this and then we'll talk about glue really quick. So there are a couple of them that I have. You know that I love, love, love the Odif glue stick. I think it is kind of my jam, but it has a very large surface up here. So trying to get 1/4 of an inch off this edge means I end up getting a lot of glue on whatever I'm using extra. So I have 2 others that I really like, and they are basically the same thing except they're different colors. So this one is from Bowen, Bohin, Bowen. And I do have links for all of these on the blog post. So if you go there and talk about basting, there's a blog post about basting, and I have links to these different tools. So this one is from Bowen, and it is the one that I used first. And it's got a purple glue in it that will dry clear. All right. And this one is from Quilter Select, and it's labeled flat fabric glue stick. And this one I like because it's really neon yellow. Can you see that? It's crazy neon.
It's kind of blowing out in the light a little bit, but I believe
that's too bad. Yeah. It is super bright yellow, and so it makes it really, really easy to see on your fabric. So I feel like it's a good universal, I guess I would say, because the purple, you might not be able to see it very well on a purple or a blue. It wouldn't show up very well, but this neon yellow will show up on pretty much anything because it's so bright. So that's my recommendation. It also comes with replacements that you can get. I've had this for several years now, and as long as you keep the cap on, it will totally last. So I highly recommend them. They're around $10 a piece, so not very expensive. And then the glue sticks, the replacement glue sticks came with it when I bought it. So that's what I'm using. So it's a smaller surface, I guess is what you would say, to be able to make that work. All right, so glue basting. Any questions on that? Did everybody understand what I was talking about?
I think we're good.
Did you understand? All right. So the other way that we can do this is that we can pin this together. And I tend to be a pinner. So I really like pinning things because it makes it really accurate. In this situation, it isn't always as accurate, but it is a little bit easier and faster. So we're going to do the same thing. I'll put my block over here. I'll move this back, and we're going to, again, put our registration marks, basically is what these are, in the fabric. Okay, so fold those together. Put a little crease. And put a little crease. Okay, and on this size block, this is a little bit bigger than the one we just did. And it is the easy quilting one, the one that I said was from Simplicity. That's what size this makes. All right, so again, same thing. And this is a very old K facet fabric. Very old, like at least 10 years old.
Got it. How long can you wait in between gluing the pieces together and sewing them, do you think?
You could let the glue sit there. Once it's glued down and stuck together, it will last for a long time.
Like days? Weeks?
Probably days. I mean, I wouldn't do weeks because they're likely to get bumped, but then they'll break apart. You know what I mean? But the glue won't unstick in that amount of time. The time it takes you to actually like put the glue with the fabrics together, you can't wait more than, 5 or 10 seconds. But then you, like I showed you, you can absolutely just re-glue it and it's fine. So this one is going to be a bit hard to see. Let me see if
you could sit there in front of the TV and do a whole bunch of gluing one night.
Oh, totally.
And then do all the sewing in one session.
Oh, totally.
The next day.
Yep.
There we go.
Yep. Absolutely. If you're going to do a bunch of them, that'd be a great way of doing it. So on this, I like to use little applique pins instead of my big pins. So this is just a personal preference, and these pins are itty bitty. And the reason I like that is because I don't really want it to take up much space here. So I'm just going to kind of come along here. I'm going to make it match. So again, I'm going to stick a little pin in here. Then I'm going to make this match in between. So I'll push those up, stick another pin in. Do the same thing here. Okay, and then we'll make the ends match. So as long as I'm matching the registration marks, I can do any in-between space. So like, I don't have to start here. I started here, I'll do this section, I'll do that section. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of stretch it just a little bit, get it to fit, and put a couple of pins in here. Now the thing about the pin basting it here is that I have to do a lot of them. So for example, if I wanted to not pin very much, I would want to pin here, and I'd want to pin here. Get those two to match.
That's kind of a mantra for you, is pin what you
Pin.
know, and then pin in
and
between.
then pin in between. And if I don't pin in between here, these are, I still have to kind of fight them, and they're harder to fight if there's something holding them there. So I would rather pin it. So yeah, pin it some more, pin it until it doesn't move. So that's what I'm going to do here.
When you're sewing curves on stuffed animals,
yes,
you oftentimes will pin the second or the third round of pins really in between from the other side to keep it from
doing that.
Yeah, to keep it from cupping.
Yep.
Does that apply here?
I'm sure it would, but I've never tried that. Yeah. So there's the honest answer. I haven't tried that. So
got it.
It might actually work. I think that if we probably switch these around, we'll do it on half of it, see if it makes a difference. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it started to flatten out a little more, which in this case, I mean, you're not running into the rest of a stuffed animal, so it's not probably as big a deal since you're just dealing with one block at a time.
Right, exactly. So I think that does make it, if we can see it on the sewing screen here, it you can see it makes it a little bit flatter here than over here. Okay. What we're really looking at when we're sewing is this isn't going to match, and we're going to have to manipulate this as we go. So that's really why I like to pin this, just this area. I think this isn't a bad sewing or pinning technique, Hawk. I think you're onto something there. Okay.
I'm on to your technique. I'm on to you, lady.
That's right. Okay, so I am going to take this out, and I am going to move that just a little because I want it to be right. And I'm going to back stitch a little, and I'm just going to go around. So I'm going to grab, this is not my pretty pin cushion, but it is magnetic, and so I can just throw things at it, which is helpful. Okay. So I'm going to stitch these and then take them out. Yeah, baby, that worked great, but now I can't pick it up. They're so little. I'm just going to keep my stiletto in hand so that I can kind of keep that where I want it to be as I take the pins out. That's usually where the problem lies, is you take the pins out and then things move.
So you're always kind of trying to wait to the very last second, and you know, then your fingers are really close.
Exactly. So as I get here and I can see there's a little bit of, it kind of wants to pucker here, and I don't want it to do that. So I'm just going to kind of pull it back and make sure that it's heading toward the rear, basically, of the machine. Okay. So this fold here, I'm going to reposition that so that it's over here. And I can kind of hold this in place, so then that flattens it out in front of it. Right? So that's part of the trick, is making the fabric on top go where you want it to, and not getting little puckers in here. So I will say that in the ones that I found the other day, there are a couple with puckers, and I just left them because it'll close out. All right, so I'm going to get to the bottom here. I'll do a little back stitch if I can find my back stitch. There we go, and then I'll clip my thread. And then I'm going to pick those up. Boop, boop. There we go.
Those are not acting particularly magnetic.
No, and there's a lot on top of if the pin cushion were clear, I think it would be better. Okay, so now I've got my block sewn on there. Again, we can see that it matched. Totally works. Okay. The thing about this is that your seams will come apart really nicely. Doesn't really matter because we're not going to pin that open, but you can see if I press it this way, the background kind of pops up. If I were to press it this way, the foreground kind of pops up. All right. So that really is just one of those things that you'll want to try and figure out which works best for you. But this technique works really nicely for being able to do it without the glue basting. So if the glue basting bothers you and you don't want to deal with it on your fingertips or having the paper, this absolutely works. Once you kind of get the hang of it, you can try it with less pins and it will get easier. I find pinning at the beginning to get those edges together and then just kind of swooping them together works really well. Yes, Hawk?
Fourth option question.
Mm-hmm.
What about clips?
They might work. My fear with, not fear is a big word for that. That's not really what I mean. My thought with the clips, let me find them because all I have is these big guys up top and these would not work at all, is that you really just want to clip just the edge of this. So I think that it would be, oh, we're here. So I think it would be a little bit harder to get these to keep the fabric pulled over and just in this area. So I would give it a try and see what you think. I really like pins or the glue, but this might work. I'm not a big fan of that trying to hold things precisely. So the Wonder Clips are great, but they don't hold things super tight.
They work great
experience.
with cuddle, half-inch seam allowances, and lots of forgiveness.
Yeah, and binding. I love them with binding. Like there's lots of little things that I use them for. Absolutely. Okay, so now we've got our little piece.
Great question.
That
Thanks,
is a
Deb.
good question. Thank you. Okay, so now once we've got our blocks sewn, these turned out pretty good. Those are already trimmed, but sometimes they don't turn out perfectly. So what we need to do is be able to trim them up. So once you have them to this point, you can kind of trim them to whatever size you want. So this is a 6-inch ruler. It looks like this is supposed to end at 6.5 inches here, so that it would be a 6-inch finished block. But I kind of just want to cut off these edges. So the thing that you'll want to take note of as you're doing this is how far this is from your cut edge. So where your curve starts to this is what you need to keep track of. So on this one, I've got 1 inch here, but I need to make sure that this side is also 1 inch right there. So I'm going to move this so that I have 1 inch and 1 inch. So then if I'm doing that with all of the blocks, those sides will match. Okay, because if you cut it so that, like I cut it here and I cut this side straight, this one is only 3/4 of an inch or so here, and we want it to be the full inch. All right, so I am going to cut it at 6 inches, and so I'm going to look here at my 6-inch line, my 6-inch line here. So I've got 1 inch up here and 1 inch over here. So then I'm just going to go ahead and cut this, trim it off. Okay, and I'll turn this around. Do the same thing. So wait, that's the side I cut. That's the side I need to cut. Sorry, I'm like, wait, where am I? Okay. So again, I'm going to measure. This would be another great place for those GE stickers, GE design stickers. So again, I'm looking at my 5-inch here, making sure those match. My edges are matching from before. And I'll trim that off, and now I have a perfect little square. Okay, so most of the time these blocks are going to tell you that it's going to make like this, a 6.5 inch block. If you sewed it perfectly. I don't sew perfectly, and I don't think you probably do either. So I like to trim them differently. So on the pattern that we gave you, I made it so that it would fit on a 5-inch square, because we almost always have extra charms laying around that we could use to practice with. So these will both fit on a 5-inch square, not at the same time, but they both fit on 5-inch squares. And you can use them that way. But when you sew them up, they should end up as a 5-inch square. But chances are it's not going to be a perfect 5-inch square. So just trim it down. We say in the pattern to trim it down to 4 3/4, just because that gives you enough to trim off. If you wanted to trim it down to 4 1/2, you could do it to that. If you're just sewing a bunch of squares together, just pick a number that you want to trim them all to, and that's the important part. All right.
Consistency at this
Consistency is the important part.
But when you change that relationship between the edge of the curve and what's going to be your seam allowance, it changes how much background shows up in between your circles.
Yes, and it will make it so if we had 2 of these to sew together, these sides need to match. So they should always be 1 inch so that they'll match really nicely right along here. Okay, so when we sew these together. So this one we would trim up the same way. Nothing special about that. All right, so, oh, I do have an example. So what I wanted to show you, sorry, let me grab that. So this is the one that I did with this is what you'll get if you do it with the template that I have. Okay, it'll cut out this size and this size, and when you sew them together, you get to this size. So this is a nice little size. It's a good size to practice on. I feel like it's kind of right in that range of lots of blocks will be about this size, 5 inches, 4 1/2 inches. I did the 3 1/2 inches. If you can get this one nailed, you're doing really well. So just practice with the pieces that are in the pattern. That is, like I said, it's just a free download from the website. It's a PDF, and you can practice this and get really good at it. So once you've gotten good, you can make a whole bunch of them. So let's talk about this. So right here, I've got a whole bunch of these guys that I made back when I worked at Fabric Depot. And if anybody's been watching me that long, which I know there are a few people, that was way back in 2011, 2012.
Yeah, that's before my time.
It's before your time. So this, these are Jen Kingwell fabrics that came out, and I think it might have been from her first line, actually. And I made that one pillow that you saw that we showed you a picture of. And then I made all of these other blocks, and then I never did anything with them. So they've just been sitting there forever and ever. So it's kind of funny that, yeah, that's where it's ended up at. So I'm going to put out 16 of these guys so that we have them to play with. Now you can see I'm just putting them down randomly. I'm not really looking what I'm doing. So this lends itself to a little bit of chaos. The fabric does as well. The fabric is a little bit chaotic, in the way that she did her fabric line was that it's supposed to look scrappy. So there's a lot of different fabrics within this same fabric line. And she does like the fabrics that have strips of the different fabric prints in them. They're very cool. So with this one, I can start turning these, and I can put them so that they just move that over there, become circles. All right, so that's pretty easy. I could also do it so that they became half circles. Okay, so we could do it this way. Okay, so you start seeing this is a different motif, and all of a sudden you start getting different lines working through it, which I think is really interesting, and playing with the background, because all of these are yellow here in the middle. They kind of blend a little bit, which is interesting to me. So the typical drunkard's path, if I can remember right, goes this way. It'll go every other one. Okay. So this is the drunkard's path. You see how that does like a little wibble wobble? Oops. Except that one goes there. Okay. So we'll do the same thing here. And as you can see, it always takes me half a second to be like, so how am I doing this? There we go. That one would turn that way. This one. Nope. This way. And then this way?
I think you were right.
This way?
Yep. I am tracking
this way. There we go.
That's
exactly what we're supposed to be tracking.
Right?
Yep, that's what we're tracking. So look at, that's a totally different look. Totally different. And I haven't played with the colors in this layout at all, but once you got into it, you can kind of play with the layouts and move like the reds around so that they were, more spaced out, all that sort of stuff. So there's lots and lots of variations of this. We have 4 variations that are on the blog post that you can see that use this block as well as just a square of color that you can do all sorts of different variations with. They're very, very fun. And this, I think, is the most exciting part, is when you get to start putting it together. Okay, so really take your time, make the blocks. I will say that I did these, I remember, as a leader ender. And I did it as a leader ender project when I was sewing. So I had just my stacks over on the side of my my sewing machine. And then as I would end things, I would use those to put together. I made them a little bit big and then I trimmed them all down as we went. And that worked really well. So using it as a project that I wasn't specifically working on curve after curve after curve, but I would just kind of throw them in there, that actually worked really well because I made twice this many. So, and plus I still have all of these left. So I have a lot of these guys that I need to actually make into, something. Another pillow maybe, because that pillow was for the store. So I don't have it anymore. Okay, so that's layout options with your drunkard's path. Now I want to show you a couple other little things that if you're looking for a challenge, this is where you can go. All right, so I have 2 other patterns that I want to show you. So one of them is the Curvelets, which are teeny tiny little drunkard's paths. Okay, so when they finish, they're this big. They're 1.5 inches.
Yeah, that's
trimmed that size.
That's itty bitty.
That's itty bitty. And then when they get sewn down, if I were to sew this into something else, it would take off all of those edges, which is exactly what we're expecting. And then these would finish at 1 inch square. So they are really little. All right. You can sew them together all sorts of ways. Okay, we would sew another one onto here and then sew these together. I'm going to show you how I make them because this is a little bit different because it is so small. We actually have to clip these curves. All right, so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace out these pieces. One of the things I really like about these, and these are from Jen Carlton Bailey, is what these are, the Curvelets from Jen Carlton Bailey.
Well, the difference between the inside and the outside curve with those templates is so much more obvious because it's so small.
It's so small, exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trace around this, and I'm just going to use a pencil here because I can see it better. I'm going to take this off. And actually, we can fit both of these on here. I'm not going to do that right now because what I was doing with the other ones is that I was cutting 2 from each and then putting them together, which is what we could do, but I'm just going to show you how to make one today. Okay, so I've got this traced out here. Technically, we should trace it on the back side. I'm going to put those marks on after I do that. Okay, so once I have it traced, I can cut it with this little bitty ruler for the straight lines. This curve is so tight that I'm just going to grab my scissors and do this. I'm a lot more accurate that way. Okay, so these are my Karen K. Buckley's, which I love so much because they are micro serrated. And that's really what you need, is something that you can have a lot of control. All right, so there's going to be my inside piece. So that's this piece. And then I need my outside piece, and I am going to turn this over now so I can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to tuck it right up against here. So these are the mini charms, the 2.5 inch squares that you can get at quilt shops all the time. And if you're like me, you get them because they're really cute and then you don't know what to do with them. This is a great little project. So I'm going to go ahead and mark these. These are the registration marks so that you don't actually have to mark anything later. All right.
Oh, that's very helpful.
It is very helpful. So they're just in there. All right. I'm going to do the same thing here, but I am going to mark it from the outside, and I'm going to mark it toward the edge here.
I'm going to derail you. What happens if your fabric is dark?
Then you use a white pencil.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all. That's what I used before. So I used this guy, which is just a colored pencil, looks like. I know that I have them that are like special fabric ones that would probably wash out, but just a white pencil would work really well. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to cut around this as well. Okay, if you need to use a little ruler, you totally can. I like to kind of eyeball these things. Okay, now the thing here is that I want to not cut too far into this because if I want to put this on later, I have hardly any room. Okay, so I just want to be careful with that, cutting out. Get that little flap off. Okay, and then I'm going to put this on here. So when I was practicing these, because I love these, and originally when Jen was showing them a lot, and you can follow her on Instagram and see what she does with these, and there's a link to her stuff on my blog. When she was originally doing them, she was always hand piecing them. And I don't mind hand sewing, but I don't want to do all of my things hand sewing. So I was like, not really my jam. And then I realized that I can actually sew these by machine if I glue base them. So as you can see here, if I put these together, there's really no way for me to get this to come over here. Like I have to stretch it so hard, it won't actually fit. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these little registration marks, and I'm just going to kind of draw where my seam line is probably going to go. All right. So I'm just eyeballing this. Can you see that line?
Yes.
Okay. So this line, I'm just kind of eyeballing where the 1/4 inch is, following the curve. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to clip it. So I'm going to clip it right at the center. And I'm going to clip it 2 more times, near, but not too close to that line. And now you can see I can just open this up and pin it or glue it on there really well. So again, I'm going to use this little paper.
Could we move over to the other?
Yeah.
Move that whole little board over to the other
Absolutely.
Camera?
So we can see a little bit better. Yeah,
Try
it's
that.
tiny. It's teeny tiny. All right. So can you see that okay?
Yes.
I know that kind of blows out with the white behind it, but I don't want to get glue on my little bitty mat. So I love this mat because it lets me move things around and it lets me spin it so that I can cut things nicely. Okay. So I'm going to use my little glue stick.
Oh, we can really see the color of the glue stick now.
Oh,
it
good.
is absolutely neon.
It's neon yellow. Yeah, it is. Sorry. Try not to do it so that my hand is totally in the way. Okay. So now I've got glue on there. What I like about it too is that you can see if it starts to dry because it'll just go away. Okay, and there's my middle. I see my little pencil dot. So I'm going to lay that there. Okay. And then I'm going to just twist this. You see that okay? Am I keeping my hand sort of out of the way?
Mostly.
Okay.
Oh, I can definitely see how clipping made that possible.
Yes. Yes, because you can see how much it has to open up to actually fit in there. Okay, so I'm going to press that down real well. Pop that up again. My glue is starting to dry. Okay. And I'm just going to keep moving and stretching this stuff until I get over here. I'm going to have to stretch that a little more.
Whoa.
Okay. Stick. There we go. Okay. So now it's glued in place. All right. Then I can just take this to my sewing machine and sew around that little curve. So what I want to do is I want to smush this all down so that it stays where I want it to. Okay. Try not to smash my finger too hard. Okay. Now I'm just going to sew around this little curve. All right. But you can hold, because it's so little, you can hold all
Okay,
of
let's
this
get
down.
see if we get your hand out of the way.
Oh, sorry.
Differently. There we go.
Sorry, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just going to sew right along here, keeping that edge along the side of my foot.
You know, not to make this even more of a challenge or anything.
No. Okay.
One stitch at a time.
Kind of, yeah. And as I come around here, I'm just going to make sure that none of that is pulling toward me and it's going to pucker. This is where I notice I get the most puckers, is on this kind of last little turn. is where I'm most likely to get things to not quite go right. Okay. All right.
All right. This is super fiddly. I like it.
It's super
I like
fiddly.
miniature stuff. I mean, whenever I go to a quilt show with you and there's a whole miniature gallery, I'm pretty excited about.
They're very fun. It's like a little challenge that I'm like, I can do this. So this is a place I was saying is like a kind of a little bit of a pucker right there. And I could see like it's doing something funny, but if I just kind of massage it, I can get it to work itself out and it'll be fine. So now let's go over and, well, do we want to do it here? I should probably trim it up here so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to press it really quick and then I'll come back. Okay, because I want it to be flat. This is the part that when I do this is when I will generally starch it. Sorry, I forgot what I was going to say. This is generally when I'll starch it. All right, the other thing I wanted to tell you is, so these are the little curvelet patterns. So this is a square up ruler, so we can square it up to the size that we want, which works beautifully. So this gives you a little bit of room. So I did it. You can cut it how you want to. So remember we were talking about how big your background needs to be. So this one, when I cut them out, I lined it up so that it would end up the corner where this is my stitching line, that it would end up here. So when I trimmed these, my 1/4 inch seam allowance goes right to the edge of this. When I trimmed these, I did it so that the 1/4 inch mark is a little beyond that. So I would have this tiny little bit of background on each of these. Okay, so you can see the difference. I mean, granted, it is a tiny difference, but you can see the difference in the amount of space here versus the amount of space here. Okay, so that's just depending on how I place my little curvelet square up. Okay, so you do have like a little bit of wiggle room, and I mean little. The other part is that I sprayed the Grippy on here, a product from O'Deef that is really great. I don't know if we can get that in there. There we go, Grippy. So this stuff is awesome, and you just spray it onto the back of the rulers, let it sit for half a second, and then they become grippy, which is great.
That you can get both. I love that you can get both halves of this block out of a little charm square.
It's great. It's great.
I mean, I see you doing like, what are the hexies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you're hand sewing hexies, like basically paper piecing hexies, and that's something you can do at the airport or whatever. And I feel like, I don't know, you can't do this at the airport, but
if you hand sew them, you could.
Yeah, I guess you could.
But I really like, machine sewing them. So I'm just going to turn my little mat the whole way. So this is what I love about having this tiny little mat, is that I can just turn it and not try to lift anything. All right, because trying to lift that up and move it is a little bit ridiculous. So I usually don't obviously cut it on my sewing machine, but I'll do this on the mat and it just flips and turns. I'll show you. Okay, so here is my itty bitty finishes up. There it is, a 1.5 inch block that when you sew it together will create a little 1 inch square. They are adorable. Jen has a whole bunch of patterns on her website that you can go to. Her website is bettycrockerass.com. So she has a whole bunch of stuff over there. She's got a bunch of she's got more templates, but she's got patterns and tutorials and all that sort of stuff. They're great. Can we go to the front camera? Thanks.
I was busy trying to figure out whether there was a banner for that. Betty Crocker.
BettyCrockerAss.com.
Ask.
Ass. A-S-S.
A-S-S.
Ass.
I did not understand. I did not hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, here we go. There's can you see it in the sewing machine camera? Show it there.
All right.
Sort of. There you go. So there's her thing. So if you go to her website, she has it. So these are 2 other ones that she has. So she has a squirvelet now, which makes a little square, like I call them squircles, where it's kind of rounded and it's a square. So she has ones like that. And then she also has this one, which is an ovalet, which creates an oval sort of drunkard's path. Okay. So same idea, same way it goes together. This one, let me see if I can see what they finish at. I'm curious. So this one, a hard time reading it. 1.5 by 2 inches is what this one, the little square one, ends up like. And then the this one is also, so this the squirvelet. Yeah, this is the squirvelet. That one ends up at 1.5 2. So just like the round one. So the actual drunkard's path, you could combine those and do some really fun things. Okay, because we have some matching side lengths. All right, so she's got patterns for you. She's got lots of tips, and she's got videos for all sorts of things. She kind of started doing, I keep wanting to say butcher block for drunkard's path, and I don't know why. She did a whole bunch of drunkard's path patterns. So she has some that are larger ones, and then she kind of got small. She has the same thing I do. We're like, could I make it smaller? And she did. So she has all of those templates as well. So she has lots of stuff on sewing curves, bigger ones and the teeny tiny ones. Okay. The other one that I wanted to show you is another kind of ruler that is from Block Lock Rulers. And I really love their rulers. I think they are awesome. They basically, you overcut things and then cut them, sew them together and then cut them down. So in this one, let's go up top again. It might be easier to see. So no, not on there. Let me get a piece of fabric so you can kind of maybe see it. See if that's better? A little bit. Okay, so you have these bigger pieces that you cut. So you will cut these pieces. Here's your circle. It's an oval. And then this is your background. All right, so you would cut these two pieces out of different things. You can see that this corner is super tight. So I tried a few times to get it to see if I could do it without clipping it, and I can't. It's too tight. So this is an area, this one you wouldn't need to clip, but around here you would clip around that corner and make it match. It creates this, which I think is just a very fun little block. So this is them obviously put together in just an oval. So it's sort of a pill shape. I really love it.
Super retro and
it
fun,
is.
Right? It reminds me of 70s wallpaper.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah, this fabric is old fabric from Jennifer's Shampoo. So they're really fun. But once you do that, you actually you sew them together and then you trim them up with these blocks or with these templates. So there's an A and a B for a left and a right of the block. And then you trim them down and they come out perfectly every time. So that's the magic with Block Lock rulers. They're really great. They are incredibly expensive if you buy them from the Block Lock ruler website, but I found them at Five Little Monkeys over in Asheville. And I put the link in my blog. They have them and they're about half price. So they are really good. They're great to have, and I know that Ange over at Five Little Monkeys carries a lot of the Block Lock rulers. So if you're looking for them, that's a great place to go, is to her website, because she's got most of them, including these guys, which are a little bit funky and I wasn't able to find anywhere else. So those are the Block Lock rulers, and they have a couple of different variations on this, the ratio. So this is 2 to 1, and there are some other ratios that they have. So depending on how big you want them and how big they finish. All right, so these blocks actually finish at 4 inches by 2 inches, I believe. Yes, so 4 inches by 2 inches is what they end up when they're all sewn together. Super cute. I really like them. I've made a few things with them, and they're kind of fun because they're a little bit of a challenge. So they're like easy on the one side, and then they get a little hard. So that's when you can definitely kind of mix the glue basting and pin basting if you wanted to. The glue basting around that curve is super duper helpful. All right, so I think we got through all the things.
I do. There were a couple of slides that we didn't end up showing. I know that we wanted to talk about maybe an upcoming pattern for you.
Oh yeah, let's show that.
That guy right there.
Okay, so this is more winding ways, and yeah, so one of them is going to be an upcoming pattern, and one of them I sewed and went to Moda. But that is also the Winding Ways block. Super chill block. It has curves on all the pieces, but the curves are really minimal. So that one is really fun because you can put it together in all sorts of ways. This is a wedding ring. There's also a double wedding ring. This is the single girl quilt from Denise Schmidt. I made this one a few years ago, so you can see the one blocks. They're big. They're, I don't know, maybe 15, 18 inches. So you make just a few of these. It's the same sort of thing. So you do these, these arcs, and then you sew them into the circle. And they are in quarters. So they do create a quarter circle and a quarter circle, and then it becomes the whole circle. Was there another one? I feel
There
like
wasn't actually. I
that
thought
was
that
it.
there was. I thought there was a rogue star to talk about.
No, that's what that one is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. That'll be the upcoming pattern.
Okay.
Yeah, which I'm pretty excited about. So that'll be coming and make you, have to sew curves more. So make sure that you check the website. Like I said, teresacoates.com is where the blog is at, and that's where you can find the PDF that you can download. It looks like this. Okay, has the little templates in here, and it'll make a nice little block that you can practice on. So get some scraps out, get some charm squares. Once you know how to sew a curve, once you understand kind of how much you have to stretch it, or do you need to clip it? Is it easier to glue based? All of that sort of thing. Once you figure that out, there's all sorts of things that you can do. There are just a ton of different quilt blocks, traditional and modern, that use curves that become much less scary. And you can see even from the little bit of rearranging that we did with the one blocks, the smaller ones, you can see all the ways that you can arrange this just get so fantastic that it's really like full of opportunity, and you can arrange it in a ton of different ways. Check out her website for some really great patterns with it. All right. I think that's it.
Yeah, let's talk about again what. So I've picked two winners. I picked two winners, and what are they gonna win?
Oh,
again, we talked about this earlier, but I threw this up. But
so I am going to, because really, the most frustrating thing about this whole process to me is actually cutting out all the pieces. I don't mind the glue basting. I don't mind pinning. I don't mind just sewing them together. It's cutting them out that I really hate. So I have dies. So I will help you out by cutting out dies for you. So I will make 2 pillow kits. And you can choose either a clamshell or the drunkard's path. And I will cut out fabric for you and send you enough to make a pillow and a little bit extra for practice as you go, because these are a little bit smaller blocks. The clamshell, I will tell you, is it's a little bit different, but it's really the same idea, because you have that half arc. You just continue and do the other half arc at the same time. Latifa has a very good tutorial on it on her YouTube channel about how to sew the clamshells. And I will say that when I did my clamshell, we never did find that. I looked for it. That when I did the clamshell quilt, once I realized what I actually had to do to get it started, that helped a lot. And so her YouTube was really, really helpful for that. So I highly recommend it. So the clamshell is the little guy. These half square, or these drunkard path blocks, are pretty small too. So it'll give you some good practice. You can start with the one that's on my the template that's on my website, and then you could go to the smaller ones. Hawk found the quilt for me, thanks. I knew it had to be around here somewhere. So this is always a favorite because it has the sparkle cuddle on it, which is just super fun. But this is the quilt that I made using that clammy. All right. So super, super easy. I will tell you that the trick, sorry, I put that on the mic. The trick that I learned is that you start with a straight edge up here. So you kind of cut half clams along the top, and then you start piecing, and you piece top to bottom. And it actually is easier than you think it is going to be. So I really recommend it. I think sewing curves just adds so much interest to your projects and opens up the whole world of quilting to so much more than just, 9 patches, stuff like that. So adding curves is great. I really hope that you'll give it a shot. Do we have any other questions that I needed to answer?
Nope, I think we're ready for some winners,
good.
though.
Okay,
is
so
that right?
Winner. So if you're the winner, we need you to, and he'll announce the winners in just a second. But if you're the winner, I need you to email hawk@crinkledreams.com and make sure that you tell me which one you want. Okay, so do you want a clamshell or drunkard's path?
So Roxanne Waremouth and Kathy Vivarka.
Nice. I remember
Congratulations.
Roxanne. I met her in Chicago, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so if I'm right, shout out. So that's great. So Roxanne and what was the other name?
Oh, Kathy Vivarka.
Okay, so Kathy and Roxanne, I want you to email hawk@crinkledreams.com and let him know which one you would prefer. And if you have a color that you especially like, let me know, and I will tailor it toward that. Otherwise, you're just going to get random fabric swatches that I have chosen for you. So either way, it'll be super fun, and I hope you'll give it a try and really put some together. So make sure that you go to the website, teresacoates.com, download the PDF with that. Like I said, there's a ton of other links over there. So lots of information for you to check out. And we'll be back next month.
Yep.
Beginning of October. So October is kind of crazy. Oh, we have a few, I need to talk about classes. So I have classes in Fargo that are coming up in 2 weeks, the 19th, 20th, 19th and 20th. I'm teaching at Raybon, thank you. My brain sometimes it just like brink. So we're teaching at Raybon, and then on the next Monday we're teaching up in Langdon at So On and So North. So that will be exciting. So we have 3 classes in North Dakota. So if you're not close to one, you might be close to the other one. Totally come. I keep telling people you have to show up, because I generally don't show up at the shops but every few years. So if I'm in the area, come check it out. Next after that, we've got October, we've got Festival. That's the next thing, I think. But I'll be teaching at Festival in Houston. And that one, I think there are a few openings in one of the class. The others are sold out. What's happening?
Okay. Audrey and I kept trying to turn on the same banner at the same time.
Got it.
Sorry, Audrey.
Yes, got it. So a little strobing of the thing. So next is Houston, and that'll be in October. And then I go to the Quilted Cow in Colorado Springs, and I teach there. So I have 3 days there. I believe it's October 23rd to 25th. Is that what it says on the other thing? So I'll be teaching there. I have a trunk show on the 23rd. So we'll be able to come and see a whole bunch of stuff. And then the next 2 days we'll make coats, which will be really fun. And then the next week I'm actually in Castle Rock, Colorado at Society, and I'll be teaching there. I'm not sure I have a slide for that one actually. And I'll be teaching there for 2 days as well. And then in November, I'm teaching at a quilt guild down in California. And I think that might be it. If there's any more, put them up on the screen, because I think that was it. I think that's all I've got planned for the year so far. So
and then next year we have the Midwest Maker Retreat.
That's right, and we do have the
Red
Maker
Roxy
Retreat
in Decorah.
Yep, and we've got a few seats for that one left. So, and we'll push it again as we get closer. We had so much fun at our retreat this year, and we can't wait to do it again. So, all right. So I think those are all the events coming up. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do. It'll alert you when we go live and when we've posted new tutorials throughout the month, which we're trying to do. And then if you sign up for my newsletter at my website, then you'll get information on the classes that I'm teaching and what I'm working on, and links to the blog. All that sort of stuff will come in the newsletter. So make sure that you sign up for that to kind of just keep in touch with us. Otherwise, I think that might be it. Is that it, Hawk? Are we good?
I think that's
I
it.
think we got it all. All right. Thank you so much. Happy sewing.